Tories are pretty desperate now just to throw any mud at Labour, or not because they think it's going to make a difference in terms of winning, but anything that they think they can do that might avoid a supermajority or reduce the size of the supermajority is basically all that's left for the Tories now.
There is a serious question because the Tories have gone after Keir Starmer here for talking about how he wants to carve out some time with his family on a Friday night. Most of our listeners are sympathetic to Keir Starmer. A couple are saying if you want to be Prime Minister, you should be willing to work harder than anybody else. Do you think this is a political fight worth having for the Tories? What do you make of it?
No, the Tories have gone completely over the top on this. I mean, I think Mr. Starmer was kind of, he shouldn't have, that may be his intention, but he should keep it to himself. And he's going to find out quite early on July the 5th, that far from being able to clock off at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, he won't even be in control of his own diary. You know, the machine takes over your diary when you're Prime Minister, and you just look at the diary and find out what you're doing and where you're going. So I think it's much ado about nothing. I think obviously the Tories are pretty desperate now just to throw any mud at Labour, or not because they think it's going to make a difference in terms of winning, but anything that they think they can do that might avoid a supermajority or reduce the size of the supermajority is basically all that's left for the Tories now. Look, I think Keir Starmer's approach, I think, is better than Gordon Brown's. Gordon Brown used to think that if he only got up even earlier in the morning, he'd be a better Prime Minister. Yeah. And, you know, in the end, he was getting up before 5 o'clock and sending emails then. Whereas I remember saying to him, once Prime Minister, have a lie-in, you'll be a better Prime Minister if you're a bit refreshed.
Well, that is a point, isn't it? I mean, there's a sort of the Boris Johnson scale where maybe he was a little too refreshed. And there's the Rishi Sunak.
Not just by sleep.
No, exactly. But Rishi Sunak, you know, Rishi Sunak was trying to sell to the country, I work really hard, I'm a detailed man. And people probably need more than that, don't they, actually?
I mean, I think everyone assumes if you're Prime Minister, you're going to be working hard. I mean, the real Stakhanovat in all this, well, Gordon Brown was, but so was Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. And she was blessed with an ability not to need much sleep. So she would rarely go to bed before 1 a.m., but she was always up by 6 a.m. at the latest. Sometimes she wouldn't go to bed till 2 a.m. after a large scotch. She didn't need much sleep. Most of us do need a lot more sleep than that. But hard work in the end doesn't cut it. You have to be able to think strategically. And I think Mr. Starmer, the moment his feet hit the ground, will have a lot of strategic issues. And of course, Don Rumsfeld's known unknowns, or as Harold Macmillan once put it, what's going to rock you, Prime Minister? Events, dear boy, events.
Indeed.
That's what's going to rock me.
Keir Starmer's doing his final interviews ahead of the election, including he'll be speaking to Matt Chorley at midday. He spoke to the Times political editor, Steve Swinford, yesterday. Steve is with us now. Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
What did you make of him? You know him pretty well by now. It seemed to us, and you can tell us if this is true, that there's a slight tonal shift here, which is instead of being let's avoid complacency, which is, I know, very much the Labour message, which still exists, he was willing to say, no, I've got big ambitions, and big ambitions need a big majority.
Yeah, he went there kind of for the first time properly. He's embracing this Tory threat of a supermajority and saying, well, actually, yes, I would like a supermajority. I would like people to come out and vote for me in such significant numbers to give me what he calls a strong mandate for the difficult changes that we need to get growth going. But look, like being frank, at this stage in the campaign, the leaders are very, they know their lines, they know their scripts, they know what they're saying. So getting them to break new ground is quite challenging. What he is not saying is still just as interesting. So he is still not saying, what will you do if your massive gamble on growth doesn't pay off? So we asked him, you know, you've got this gamble on growth, everything relies on that. But all the economists are skeptical about that. What is your plan B? You're someone who contingency plans, you're renowned for it. What is your plan B? And he just kept saying, I've got absolute confidence, 100% confidence that we will get growth of a level this country has not seen for a very long time. So that's fine. But if he doesn't get it, then economists point out you're going to be looking at tax rises or spending cuts. And then secondly, on the tax question, I asked him very specifically, can you rule out additional tax rises in your first budget, so which is coming in September? And you would have thought that it would be quite a strong move to raise taxes in that budget, given they've kind of gone through this campaign suggesting they won't do that. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't give that assurance. He just said, "I won't write it." We pressed him again and again on that, and he wouldn't go there. So there's the unanswered questions are still there and still very significant.
I wonder if there's something significant else at play in this election, Steve. I wonder if you agree with this, is that he's going to get this stonking majority, or however big it is. He's going to get keys to the kingdom on the promise of doing politics better, change, being honest, getting the country better, improving public services, all of these things. If this Labour government doesn't then deliver it, then many people's faith in the democratic system will be shaken, I think. Don't you think that? And we've seen that in Europe. We've seen the sort of the rise of the populism, populist right, the far left. We've not seen that in this country. And we're going to end up with something quite centrist. But if that centrist approach, that you can trust us, we're going to make Britain better, fails with a huge majority, that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
It's a massive problem. It's also a problem for Keir Starmer personally, because actually he is going to be, if he wins this election, the most unpopular incoming prime minister for a very long time. He'll be more unpopular than Gordon Brown was, more unpopular than Tony Blair was, more unpopular than all the prime ministers we've seen for going back to Thatcher. So he has a net favourability rating, as they call it in the polling, of about -20. Now Sunak is much more unpopular than that. But we did put this to Starmer. We asked him, well, look, you are actually very unpopular for an incoming prime minister. Your party's popular, but you are not. And he answered that by saying, well, you can't separate me from the party. The two are completely interwoven. And then he also said that, look, judge me on my actions. Trust me, voters. Judge me on the actions. I'm going to make your life better. But as you say, if he doesn't achieve that and doesn't deliver these promises, he is promising he'll make people materially richer, materially better off, and that public services will be better by the end of his premiership. If they're not, then that's going to be a big problem. And there is that kind of bigger issue of faith in politicians and politics and whether that's been eroded.
And we'll have to see what happens. Just finally, what do you make of this spat, if I can call it a spat? Keir Starmer talking about the work-life balance, trying to put aside some time for his family on Fridays. We just had William Hague on. He just says it's not going to happen. You know, these people, Labour, he's talking about, have not been in government for a long time or never been in government. They don't know how hard it is. You can't simply have time for your family. But lots of people think it's a laudable aim. The Tories trying to call him a part-time PM. What do you make of it?
Well, I kind of remember a couple of weeks ago, Rishi Sunak was praising Keir Starmer for looking after his family during the strains of the election campaign. So he's now gone on the offensive over it. But look, working in number 10 is relentless. It is almost 24/7. And I'm sure he will find that, as previous prime ministers have, because it's always shaped by events. Things happen and they happen at inconvenient times. And as prime minister, you have to respond to that. I'm sure that is the reality of number 10 when he gets in there. It is a pretty much 24/7 job. And all of its incumbents have found that.
Do you think it's fair to have a go at him for it? Wes Streeting's very angry about it. He's disgusting, and he mentioned vomit at Downing Street and all of that stuff. Do you think calling him a part-time PM will have any oomph?
I don't know if it. I don't know if it registers with vote. I mean, look, this is an election that is being fought on issues like the cost of living, on issues like migration, on broader issues. So I'm not sure this debate, this chat, interesting as it is, will register on the kind of broader spectrum of what's going on there as people are paying to bills. So he's just going to keep his campaign centred on money in people's pockets and things like that. But as you say, Stig, the bigger question is, what if he doesn't deliver on what he's promising? That is the question for the next 5 years if he wins this election.
Yeah, and we'll find out in, what is it, not very long time, 44 hours or something. Steve, you're flagging, are you okay? You're hanging in there?
We're hanging. I mean, it's been a really interesting campaign from a journalist point of view.
Yeah.
For something that people claim this is a foregone conclusion. Actually, it's been and Times Radio has been at the forefront of this. It's been a pretty extraordinary ride to get here. And if you could have told me the last 5 weeks would have gone the way they've gone, I'd have been very surprised. It has been a really interesting campaign.
And we still don't know where it ends, do we? We still don't know precisely where it ends. We know that Labour are going to win, but we don't know precisely how, and that's massive.
Yeah, that's massive. And it's a kind of tectonic moment in politics, right? We are on the cusp of that. We're living through it. And it's not just in this country. It's also in the US. There's tectonic movements in politics. In France, it is as interesting as the time as you will ever get to report on politics right now.
Great stuff. We're doing a great job, Steve. We love having you on the show as well. That's Steve Swinford, The Times' political editor.